Um, I wanted to mention a couple things on Carmen 1 before we go on to chapter 2 in Catullus' book, which is going to have poem 51, Carmen 51. I think I made a mistake on lines 9 and 10. The quote, I believe, is going to go with the perenne, and I'm not sure I did it that way in the recording. So, quote, referring to his book, it said whatever it is of a book, which may it last perenne, eternally, more than one age or more than one generation, I think is a good way of doing that. That's obviously a little clunky in English, so you might just say, may it last forever, but, wanted to try to make sure that I got all the words right. I think it's ideally, as you're going through these poems, you want to know exactly what every word is doing. That's maybe not always possible, but we do our best, right? I was going to read a little note also from Kenneth Quinn on that poem. There are little hints that he's digging at Cornelius a tiny bit. Cornelius apparently claimed, this history book deals with all of history, but it's in 3 books, so that's a fourth of the length of the Aeneid, assuming they're all the same books, and so it's not going to be a very thorough history, and also I think there are hints that like the laboriosus might mean boring, in addition to work. But anyway, to be toilsome. This toilsome for the reader, maybe. So Quinn says this. I just get a little chuckle out of it. Unqualified admiration was not the done thing in the Catullus circle. Carti is hardly a grand synonym for volumina, although it is used by Lucretius. Explicare similarly undercuts the grandiloquence of omni aevum, soliciting a visual image of the whole of time laid out on 3 sheets of papyrus. The Carti or Docti Jupiter, damn sound scholarship, although doctus implies taste as well as learning. But they are also laboriosi, a word that suggests going out of one's way to make work for oneself. So maybe Catullus is teasing his buddy a little bit. And Catullus, as I mentioned earlier, Catullus had money, so he might not have been depending on Cornelius to bankroll this thing. You wouldn't want to do too many digs at your patron. Although Horace, if you've read Horace's satires, he'll take little jabs at Maecenas, who was super powerful and rich. So I think it shows that he was, Maecenas was probably a pretty good guy. Okay, in chapter 2, we're moving on to Catullus 51. We'll probably, I think Kitchell leaves out poems 2 and 3, the so-called passer poems, the sparrow poems, and I'll probably include those because I like those a lot. This one is quite interesting. First of all, it's a loose translation of a poem by Sappho. Okay, now Sappho, I've got my Oxford Classical Dictionary. I thought about checking dates. I'm pretty sure I remember roughly the dates, but I wanted to check and make sure. And I thought about using Wiki, but I thought it might be better to remind you all again of the Oxford Classical Dictionary. It's a good source, and if you're into classics, it would be a good thing to acquire. You can usually get an earlier edition on Abe, Advanced Book Exchange, at a fairly decent price. Imagine the newest ones, you know, probably at least $150 or maybe more than that. Anyway, they actually give a suggested date for her as 612. I don't know. That's from the Suda, which is a Byzantine encyclopedia. And Sappho was from Lesbos. Now, I need to mention, I don't know if this is, I think we might have mentioned it already in calling referring to Lesbia as Catullus's girlfriend. Lesbos was where Sappho had a boarding school, and so lesbian, he means probably just charming. Also, if the woman was Clodia, as is generally conceived, Clodia and Lesbia metrically are the same, and so that's apparently something the poets like to do. If they're not giving their girlfriend's real name, they would choose a metrical equivalent, you know, I guess so the girl would know that she was being talked about. And the word does not mean lesbian in the sense that we use this now. Apparently, Sappho was probably bisexual or homosexual, but the word would have meant, I think, for Catullus, just sophisticated, charming. Sappho's poetry is very beautiful. She's the only female poet from antiquity, as far as I know, of which we have any significant remains. And this is from a genre that we usually call Greek lyric poetry. And it's really good stuff. The poem itself of Sappho's, we have from, I'm going to mention again, show and tell, Longinus's The Volume of the Lobe. These books that have the Greek on one side and English on the other. It's probably showing backwards. And they're green covers. This one's kind of a cool one. It has the Poetics, Longinus on the Sublime, and Demetrius on Style. And Longinus on the Sublime. Those are all works of literary criticism, okay? What makes great literature among the Greeks, okay? And so Longinus actually quotes this poem from Sappho as an example of intensity and a lot of detail. And so it is surmised, Kitchell refers to this on the first page, a little introduction on page 9 in your book. And I may do this as a two-parter because I'm sensing this this is going to be a little bit long on our recording. Kitchell follows several scholars in suggesting this might be the first poem that Catullus wrote to Clodia / Lesbia. You know, assuming this isn't all made up, and I think most people think it's not all made up. I do want to mention, though, you have to be careful with these poems. There are a lot of poetic conventions, and we used to be very fond of reading poems as if they were autobiographies, and assuming that, you know, such and such is referring to something in the personal life. And that's obviously not necessarily true, any more than, say, if you have a current star, you know, if Taylor Swift is writing a song about people breaking up, that doesn't mean that she just went through a breakup or that she's referring to any particular breakup that she had, although it could mean that. So you have to be careful with that. But this one does seem to be biographical, this set of poems to Clodia / Lesbia. Okay, and so Wilkinson, I'm again looking at Kenneth Quinn's book, which has a lot of good commentary on it. It's a little dated, it's the 1970s, but still good. And so I'm quoting him. Wilkinson's statement of the hypothesis of poem 51 is succinct and persuasive. Quote, "I believe with others," he says, that this was the first poem Catullus sent to Clodia, a free translation of one by Sappho. It was intended as a test, a feeler. If she were in love with him, she would understand what he meant. If not, after all, it was only a translation. I think that's certainly a good option. We obviously can't know that. Quinn goes on to say that if we follow this hypothesis, Catullus is going to want to translate Sappho pretty closely, but also maybe include a little hints of referring to himself. And Quinn mentions a couple of those. I may or may not get into that. Okay. So let's go ahead and start the poem, even if we don't finish it in this video. Maybe we will. Looking now then at page 17, if you have, well, I hope my students will have the text they're supposed to have. Okay, so it starts out, and these are in, the meter here is called Sapphic stanza. We'll at one point talk about meter, but not now. Okay. And so, even the meter is following Sappho, okay? So, ille mi par esse deo vi dator. Catullus mentions, okay, in case any of you don't have the book who are watching this, Catullus gives the poem basically in two versions, and the first one's going to have some notes. The first version is kind of done as if it were prose in English word order. So it's best to do that one first, page 13, making sense of it, before looking at the final version on page 16, because he's going to have some notes on page 13 or 12 and 13 that aren't in the final draft. So that makes it a little bit tricky, and I'll try to kind of keep one eye on that and one eye on the other. The videator is potentially problematic if you haven't done a lot of Latin. Literally, it means is seen. That tour ending is passive. Remember, are, ris, tour, more, many, intor are the passive endings. And so it should be is seen, but lots of times it will sound a lot better in English to say seems, S-E-E-M-S. So we start out, that guy, ille, seems to me is the same thing as mihi, dative, to me, to be esse, equal to a god, or similar to God, par deo. That one, if it is right, if I can say that, to surpass the gods. So it kind of pretends that he's pious here. That one, well, I think so, just to an extent he is pious. That one, if it is right, to surpass the gods, who sit-ins, I hope you're remembering those present participles from last chapter, who's sitting adversus te, opposite you, repeatedly identidem, sees and hears. You have to take that te again, you, dulce ridentem, laughing sweetly, or sweetly laughing. Okay. Now, notice how you have to be careful with the word order here. These are different stanzas, really, that we have, but you take that te with the second stanza also. I'm trying to find my text in Quinn's book where it's set up a little bit better. So you have the adversus and the te in line 3, and then the te is going to go with ridentem, okay? You could almost put a period there and say, quote, this thing, but if you don't mind a long sentence, just keep going here, which is what we have, I guess. Which snatches away omnis sensus, all the senses from wretched me, misero mihi. Okay. Misero mihi, as he tells you, is a dative of separation. Ablative of separation is more common. It's kind of like the idea of sometimes people use the term dative of disadvantage. Maybe that's why he uses the dative there rather than the ablative. Also might be metrical. Of course, the mihi gives you 2 syllables and the may would just give you 1, so you'd have to figure out how to do that. The omnis sensus is perhaps a little tricky. Remember, with those third declension adjectives, as he tells you, the is is often there, found in the accusative plural, especially in poetry. And then sensus is a fourth declension noun. We maybe don't know those quite as well, but that's accusative plural, okay? And then he says, for simul, as soon as I have seen you, aspexite lesbia, there is nothing left, super, there's nothing remaining to me. And here we have a little break. We're not sure what was there. There's nothing to me, a voice in my mouth, maybe. I think we talked about the manuscript tradition is not rich. It's not like Virgil. So we do have some things in our poem that are left out in our poem. Sorry. Okay, and I think I will go ahead and finish this, and then I might come back and do a little bit more when we talk about the next poem. So backtrack a little bit. Okay, so he's imagining this scene where he's, or again, it might have been a real scene. It might have been at a party, and he's seeing her with her husband, likely, and he's really hot after her. She's probably smiling at him a little bit. Okay, but my tongue is stuck. It can't. It can't act. Is numb, maybe. A tenuis, a slender flamma. Tenuis is nominative singular, third declension adjective, going with flamma. A tenuis flamma drips through my my joints. Okay, sub artis, sorry. No, the fourth declension. And my ears tingle or ring, tintinant. Kitchell mentions this is onomatopoetic. Okay, and he has a whole thing at the end of this chapter on different poetic devices. So we might talk about that too. My ears tingle with their own sound. My ears ring with my own sound, with their own sound. Okay, now here he uses lumina. Lights, literally, in place of eyes. Okay, so my twin eyes, or my twin lights, if you want. I'm sorry, whoops, I was about to make a mistake here. My eyes are covered with twin night. And I'm almost glad I was about to make my mistake, because that shows you what we have here is a transferred epithet. It's much more natural to take the gemina with the lumina. Okay. And when we transfer that adjective to the noun to which it doesn't quite cover it as well, that's called a transferred epithet. Epithet as an adjective, okay? The most famous example is Virgil talking about the walls of lofty Rome instead of the lofty walls of Rome. It's about line 10 maybe in the first book of the Aeneid. Okay, so my lights or my eyes are covered in twin night. Okay. Now he cuts off here. Possibly he's disgusted with himself. Or possibly he wants to make it clear, okay, this is no longer a translation of Sappho. This is, I'm being a little more personal here. And also, some scholars say this probably should be a separate poem. We don't know. Okay, anyway, or a separate fragment or something. Okay. Leisure, otium, is troublesome to you, Catullus. You don't do well having free time, buddy. Okay. You exult in leisure. Okay. You nemium quae gestis is a little hard to translate. You go crazy. We're going to say in English. You gestio. You act nemium. You act too much. You're too much out there. Okay. Otium, leisure, and otium was really big with the Romans. They believed that, this was kind of like their idea of rest, recreation. It wasn't just lying around on a couch watching TV, but, doing thinking and being productive mentally, okay? But here, Catullus says better not do this, okay? Otium, leisure, earlier, before Prius, has destroyed kings and blessed cities. It's a little weird ending there, but that's what it is. We won't go into like the pros and cons of whether that belongs, at least on this one. So, all right. Hope you liked poem 51. It's a fun one, and that's all for now.